Okay? Yeah, so the first order of business is to accept the minutes. So for all those who have email and have had a chance to read the minutes, did anybody find any mistakes or questions in the minutes? So I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to accept Rachel's minutes. Thank you, Rachel. And Ken, could you give us the treasurer's report?
Our balance at the end of the last meeting was $4,578.90. Over this last month, we had book sales of $40. For expenses, our box rent for the year down at the post office is $136. VTEL for the monthly service is $48.80, and Green Mountain Power for electricity was $41.30. So our balance as of tonight is $4,392.80. And our event account, we picked up $8 last month with our non-50/50. So our balance there tonight is $509.89, and the fire station restoration remains at $2904.28.
Okay. So any questions for Ken or myself on the treasurer's report?
I move we accept it as presented.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the treasurer's report. Thank you, Ken. So tonight we got a few things going on. We got a guest speaker here, but before Ron comes up, a lady from South Burlington, Stephanie McDaniel, had called me up 2 weeks ago and said she had a large collection of healed artifacts, memorabilia, photographs, from a house that she grew up in. Her mother lived there for many years, is the way she described it, and fell in love with the Heald family. So there's pictures here. In this box down here, we'll bring out later on, there's some dresses and looks like a man's uniform. And so we can look at that at the end of the meeting. When Ron comes up to speak here in a little while, I also want him to explain what these photographs are and what time period we're talking. So Ron's got a few short stories for us. Ron also brought this in tonight, and maybe he'll tell us a little bit about it. This is the Central Hotel 1880s?
88.
1888, so this is before the fire.
The last entry is the fire.
The last entry is the fire of the hotel across the road here. Okay. So with that, for the first 15, 20 minutes or whatever Ron wants, he's got the floor,
Okay.
if he can walk.
Once I'm upright. Oh, I don't know, I lose track of time. 2 or 3 weeks ago, Rachel sent me an email, would I be willing to come down and talk about the book I'm working on to be released next spring? And I said, yeah, I think it'd be a good idea. And by the way, Rachel and John are both doing a good job, don't you think? I think so. Yeah. I get this idea, I go see Ted, I go see Lee, I travel all over seeing people I know, and it's probably just the way I am, but all of a sudden we start telling stories. And I hear all these stories and I begin to think they should be recorded. So I've asked Lee Decatur, for instance. He came to Chester in '69 to teach in the old school and then down at the new school. And just sitting around working on clocks together, he'll start telling me about something that happened at the new school in 1971. And he's got some great stories. So I've asked Lee to write down some of his stories of the early days of the new Green Mountain High School. So he's going to do that. Another Lee Kendall's going to write a couple more stories. He's already written a piece of poetry that he never did anything with, so he's going to give me that. His daughter, even though they grew up in Keene, made weekly trips to the farm over here, Kendall's barn. So his daughter, she loves to write. She's a professor of some sort in Providence, Rhode Island. She's going to turn in a bunch of stories, I guess. Billy Burton. How many people, does anyone remember Ula and Ritva Piola? Okay. I was overseeing Billy Burton. He married Ritva Piola. I was overseeing him a while back. And we sat having a cup of coffee in the morning. And I started asking Ritva questions. They came from Finland to Andover in 1957. She would have been about 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old. Came from Finland to Andover, didn't speak a word of English. None of the family spoke a word of English. And her and Ula started in the one-room schoolhouse up in Simonsville. I think it was Simonsville. Don't hold me to that. And she was telling me about what it was like. And I tried to imagine, and I ask you folks to do the same thing. Try to imagine you're 8 or 9 years old, and you packed up here in Chester or wherever you're from, and you went to Finland, where you didn't speak a language and probably didn't know hardly anyone. That was the environment that these girls were thrust in. They speak perfect English today with absolutely no accent. When she told me that story, I said, wow, this is cool. So I asked her if she'd write it. She's going to write that story. And she's going to check with Ula, because she said Ula would probably have some stories. So there's more stories. And then I found, going through some of my stuff, several page, typewritten page document, written in 1944, somebody in Andover that kept track of mostly Finnish men that went into World War II. Whether they were in the Pacific or whether they were in Europe, and when they might be home, that sort of thing. Some of the men worked in the shops in Springfield, but it's a really thorough document, so I want to include that in this book. Bob Turco, he's got some stories. So I spoke to him. He can't do it in the summer. He's too busy doing what he's doing, but this winter, and that's great that I have a March publication date. This winter he's going to write down a story or two. I'm forgetting a number of people. Oh, Donna Mitchell. How many people remember Donna Mitchell? Harry does. Yeah, Francine does. Ted, yeah. She grew up in what is Mitch's Maples today on the Turnpike. She belongs to a writers club up in on the islands where she was living. She's living in Burlington or South Burlington now. But I asked her if she wanted to write some stories. Oh boy, she sent me 2 of them so far. One is, the title of it is Pierce. Took place at the Mitchell homestead right down here. I'm sure there's a number of people that remember Fresh Air Kids. Pierce was a Fresh Air kid out of the city. She said Dennis was about, at the time, Dennis would have been 5 or 6. And she describes Pierce, his reacting here, no buildings. He come out of New York City, you know, he's afraid of wolves, he's afraid of everything. But he could play in the yard, that was okay. Wonderful story though, it's a wonderful story. And then she wrote another one about the old elm tree that takes place on the Turnpike, or she calls it the dump road. Danny Clemens has written 2 stories and sent them in to me. One's on the dump road, and I can't think what the other one is now. Remember the mud on the dump road? Oh boy. And I was telling Ted about this. This is how it happens. I was just visiting with Ted a while back up there, and I was telling him about Danny's story, the mud on the dump road. And Ted remembered the mud on Flamstead Hill, or Crow Hill, whatever you want to call it. It's always been blacktop in my life, as far as I know, but Ted remembers when there was a mud hole where Walt Turco lived, right close in there. So these are the kind of stories that are coming in. I'm asking anyone here that wants to write some stories. You don't have to be a skilled writer or anything. Oh, I'm forgetting Kenny Barrett. Kenny! He told me a story. This is a great story. Of course, I was probably more of a hellion in high school than Ken was, but he had some in it. Quickly tell the story, Ken, about you driving up through Proctorsville Gulf.
I had just barely gotten my license. I only had it a week or 2, and Proctorsville Gulf had just been reconfigured to the way it is now, with the passing lane and everything. And one night I headed up through the Proctorsville Gulf, and there was a car ahead of me, and he was going it was 65 or so up through there. So I had to do about 80 to go by him up through the Proctorsville Gulf. Well, it turns out the car that I passed was driven by Hezzy, and he had my father with him, and so I passed this car, and when I got home before my father did, and he just held out his hand and said, "Your license, please."
But these they're in some ways they're almost silly, unimportant stories, but at the same time, they are part of who we all are. That's how I see it. So I'm looking for stories. If you have some, let me know. Anything you want to write about, it doesn't matter. I've got some fun antique stories that took place involving myself years ago. Not necessarily here in Chester, but in the area. I'm probably going to write down a couple of those, the ones I think are better, more interesting ones. I think people will find them interesting. But Ken's going to write that one, and I'm going to get him to write another one out of that. And try to get 2 stories from everyone. And Bob Ulbrich wrote a really good history on John Butler. It's several typewritten pages. And I had it on the computer. No, I didn't have it on the computer. I had the hard copy. So Donna Mitchell LeClaire, I keep calling her Mitchell, she's Donna LeClaire. Donna asked me to send it up, and she would transcribe it into a digital thing and send it back to me. So I now have that digital. That's a wonderful story. Early days of John Butler, starting in Wyndham and then in Chester about 1957. Pretty good story. Those that remember John, he had some odd habits. He would often stand. He loved horses. He had horses on the brain. He would do that a lot. And if somebody mentioned the word string, short, mighty short, string, he'd say. He had a habit of taking a $1 bill, and he would fold it and fold it and fold it up to about the size of a postage stamp. And he'd go in the store over here. Marjorie Cross told me this. He would go over here to the store, and he'd get something for less than $1, and he'd go up to the counter, and he would put it on the counter, and she'd say 69 cents or whatever it was, and he'd hand her the $1 bill and make her stand there and unfold it. He had some really odd behavioral things, but nice enough guy. I don't think he ever hurt anybody.
He donated a lot of money for our scholarship fund.
Yep.
Yep.
So that probably pretty much covers that. This stuff from the, what'd you say, Daniels?
Yeah, McDaniel was her last name. And
Was she a heel? Was she presumably?
no, she wasn't, and they were not related. Her mother rented that house, so it would have been in the 80s.
The house up on the hill?
No, the old house.
Oh. Ken?
The one that Russ Leach lived in.
Yeah. Do you remember who was there?
Yeah, I remember McDaniels.
Okay.
Yeah, her mother was a school teacher.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember those. Anyway, she has donated to the Historical Society a bunch of stuff that's here on the table. And one of my fields of expertise is photography. I absolutely love it. These they're called daguerreotypes. They were first invented in 1839 in France. By late 1839, they had arrived on the shores of this country. They were in existence from 1839, maybe 1840 to 1855. There were still probably some photographers who were continuing this process, whereas other processes had come into play. This one here, that's in the case, this one is the earliest one, and I was showing John this. Anybody wants to see it afterwards, I'll explain how this is. Daguerreotypes are taken on copper. That's a copper plate. And what the photographer did is he took that copper plate and silver, and he would somehow apply it on there, melt it, whatever it was, and then buff it and buff it and buff it and get it so it's flat, just like a mirror. That's why today if you look at these things, you often don't see the image until you tip it a little bit, then you will. Copper plate and the glass were put together as you see them, and then on the back here, you won't be able to see it, but if you come up you will, there's a paper foil, we call it, all the way around. What that does is that tapes the glass and the copper together. And then, this unit around here is called a preserver. Now these came into being 1846, 47, they started using preservers. This daguerreotype does not have a preserver. So this one predates 1846. How much, I don't know. Sometimes I can tap them right out of there. Occasionally you find them with a name behind them. This one doesn't want to budge and I'm not going to force it. But it's 1846 or earlier, so this is one of the earlier dags as we call them in the trade. There's some tintypes here. This is CDV size tintype. These were slipped into photograph albums, and it's from 1 dozen for $1. He's got his name, but not the city or state that he was from. It's a nice group of stuff. This is a nice little tintype here. That one is a tin plate like this. The photograph is right on the tin, and then the glass over it, and then that is sealed together similarly as the dags are. That's a man and wife and two children. It's a nice tintype. And then there's this. This is a cute little thing here. I haven't seen this one before. It looks like a little, almost like a little leather wallet. It is leather. And it opens up in the front. And it has those two tintypes. Nice little keepsake.
And those will be about what year, Ron, when you say tintype again?
1860s.
Okay.
And then you open up the other side, and there's two more tintypes in there.
No identification as to who they are?
No. But I was telling John, when Priscilla healed, Pete, when she was up on the hill here and moved to down, I think it's Massachusetts, to be closer to her daughter, Pete got a hold of me and I went up, and she gave me a bunch of Heal family history. There's some documents in those boxes back there, 18th century documents that are from the Heal family, Daniel Heal. A wonderful letter, or document I'll call it. It's a wonderful document. Daniel Heal, before he moved to Chester, I think he moved here in 1775 if I remember right. Before he moved to Chester, he had been in Boston. And he was, well, you could call him a Tory. He leaned more towards Great Britain than he did the colonies. Then you had all that stuff going on, Boston Massacre and all that stuff. Daniel Heal's job was going around and tack up proclamations from the King of England that this new law is now in effect. So he was not well liked in Boston. But at the Battle of Lexington, on the way back, as the Redcoats came back from Lexington, it's in one of these documents, it's in those boxes, I'm not making this up. Daniel Heal shouldered his musket, is how it's worded. He had his 9-year-old son Amos at his side, and he fired on the Redcoats as they came back across Concord Bridge. So he went from a Tory to
Patriot.
yeah, I think he fought Ticonderoga too. I think I remember that. But all that stuff back there, if you take these photographs with what's in those boxes, you might be able to identify some of these people from some of those that are already identified. So there's always a chance you can do that. Cool, huh? And this is Historical Society property. The bindings are shot, as you can see. It's the hotel ledger for the Central Hotel across the street here. You can see the advertisements in it. Each page has advertisements like that. Wonderful, wonderful. It's the last entry. I'll take a minute to read it to you. Saturday, June 2nd, 1888. Am I on the last page? Oh, here it is.
Want more light, Ron?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Fire broke out in the hotel 1:40 a.m. June 5th. Hotel entirely consumed together with 2 blocks next north stable and outbuildings. 9 guests and 9 boarders rescued without injury. Then the next page, it lists who all the boarders were, and it's amazing, amazing piece of history right there. So that's a cool thing. So I guess I'm all done.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah. Get some water.
So I took over the being president for Ron in October, and big shoes to follow because he's very knowledgeable on Chester history. I'm knowledgeable on the Popple Dungeon section of town, and I do the best I can with the village part here like that. And we have Ted, who's also here tonight with us. It's very knowledgeable. So I've got a lot to learn, and each month I've enjoyed it. I enjoy doing the meetings. Tonight we're going to close with a few mystery photographs, and for the next 3 months we have guest speakers. So that'll be good. Different people that have volunteered, and we're always looking for people that want to volunteer and speak at meetings on some field that they might want to talk about to do with Chester or any local history. So with that, I'm gonna start the slideshow.
I think I have.
Anybody here know this house?
Boy,
Doug Hasson's in it.
huh?
Doug Hasson's place, isn't it? Don't talk about you.
You're good, Ted. I call it a different name. What'd you call it, Ted?
Doug Hass, can't think of it name.
Casson?
He had a goat farm there.
The goat farm is what I'd call it, but I didn't know the last name.
Doug Hass.
And then when I was a kid, I believe it was Pat and Hubbard Ballou lived here.
Yep.
No, that's correct. So,
Yeah, and right now, her sister's, it's her, Rachel's sister's house now. So it's just there. Yeah, that's her house. So that was quick. And the house is still in beautiful shape. And, yeah, so we did. Okay, next. Okay, but does anybody recognize the location first? And then after that, could tell me whose house it is? Any guesses here?
Seems we all agree we don't know.
Yeah, and we all ride by it every day.
Oh, how do you know? Where's it located?
Well, I'm getting to that. Yeah, yeah, so I was just trying to give a little clue, yeah.
Is that Aspen's house?
This house is the first house that sits on the knoll on Cummings Road.
Oh, on Cummings
Oh,
Road.
so you're going towards Ron's or,
Yeah.
towards Springfield. But who lived there?
Norm Stevens lived there when I came to town.
Okay, but who, was it one of the Cummings or,
No, they're the next.
They're the next place.
okay, was it, could it have been Spafford's? Did Oscar Spafford live on this road too? So I know the house, but I guess I couldn't remember who lived there when I was a
Hoskins lived
kid.
there.
Who?
I think Hoskins lived there.
Hoskins, okay. I didn't know that. I always liked the house is still there?
Norm lived in later.
Yeah.
Yes,
Bill Hoskins lived there.
okay.
I remember that.
She
time
was,
very low
actually,
ceiling.
he was Vera Farr's husband.
Jeez, that's good, Ted. Yeah, yeah. So, I guess I never knew where, Oscar Spafford lived on this road, so I thought maybe it was his. And didn't Ralph and Marvin Cummings grow up on this road?
Up to Cummings' house up on the hill, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know.
Further up the hill.
Okay, I didn't know which house was there, so when I saw that, I said, well, maybe that's the
Yeah,
house.
that was Elmer Cummings' place up there.
Okay, all right, so good, thank you.
No, Oscar Spafford lived down off the road from
Yeah,
Hendricks
First
Corner.
First, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, no, this would have been before that.
oh, before we moved in.
Yeah, well, Rachel's grandfather would have been George Spafford, who died here a few years ago, and he lived on this road as a kid. So George Spafford, yeah. So, before they went down on First Avenue. Okay, next. I think,
Well, I bet that's a brick house.
yep. What a beauty that is, I love it.
Haley's Mills.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll let everybody study that, and Ted knew right off. Does others want to weigh in?
Is that Ronnie Rushton's house?
Ronnie lives there now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah, when I was a kid, we called it Lloyd Earls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you went up past here a little bit, up towards where Les Cole lived, you'd come to a little schoolhouse, little stone schoolhouse next to this.
Well, Ronnie's
the road?
mother was an Earl.
What road is that?
Bailey's Mills.
What is it?
Bailey's Mills.
Bailey's Mills.
Yep. And to the right, you'd go to Wyman's Falls.
Now, being an antique dealer, that was a house I always wanted to get in and buy stuff. So I used to stop every now and then and see Lloyd,
Yep.
try to talk him out of something.
Yep.
He showed me around, but he wouldn't sell nothing. When he died, I was driving by afterwards, and there was a dumpster out
Yes.
front, and they opened the upstairs windows and were just throwing it into the dumpster.
I can't imagine what got thrown into that dumpster. I saw the dumpster there, yep. Yep. Yeah, so Ronnie Rushton's there now, yeah. But that's a nice area of town, and I'd like to find more photographs of Bailey's Mills, Wyman's Falls. And,
Have you been in the house to see the murals that Lloyd painted in the house?
no, I have not.
It would be nice that we could ask Ronnie if we could take pictures, because
Okay.
Lloyd did beautiful, beautiful artwork throughout
Okay.
that house.
And he was a chef too, wasn't he?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the last time I was in the house, he was cutting up a bear in the kitchen for, what else? I don't know if it was Gary Cole or Les Cole or Calvin or one of the Cole brothers. You walk in, he was cutting up a bear in the kitchen. The last time I was in that house. Yep. Okay, next, Rich. Now,
That almost looks like Bobbleton.
I don't even know if I know this one. Oh,
Not the Henry place, is it?
no, this is a great photograph, and if I've got this, I hope I've got this note I've taken. Let's study this for a little bit. It's right here in town. The way I've got this written down, unless I've made a huge mistake.
Head off Church Street,
Yes, right off, right
right on
on,
the corner.
no, right on 103. Huh?
Steve Copping's house?
No, it's the one across, isn't it?
What is it?
Yeah, I've got this written down, and I believe it was on the back of the photograph, as Paul Jeffries.
That's kind of hip proof though.
Yeah, have I made a mistake here, or do we still have the photograph?
Jeffrey's house
Jeffrey's owned
has,
the farm.
Yeah.
Or is it Steve's?
How did I mess that up? I could have swore this is the photograph that said
it's not
Paul.
big enough to be Steve Copping's place.
No?
I mean, it's too big to be Steve Copping.
Oh, boy.
That's why you call them mystery photos.
Yeah, who did you think it was?
I thought it was the one that just went back on sale, the brick house on 103.
Didn't Rose house?
Uh,
Didn't
Never
Rose
heard of the
house
depot.
on the corner?
Remember Hazen's
Oh.
house?
Remember
Oh, Sergeant
Hazen's?
House?
Pember Hazen's?
I don't, I'm new here, so
Okay.
all the names are like, oh, that's nice.
You know, I don't think
Kind
it's
of like the
that
one
No,
that's
it
for
wouldn't
sale
be,
up
'cause
in
the
the
back's
corner
all
of
right, yeah.
Church Street, where you turn around, it sets back. It's a big house like that.
Yeah, the Sergeant House.
Yeah. Looks something like
I
that.
made a mistake here somehow.
Or it could also be up on Goldthwaite Road. Oh, what's that man's name Ted lived up there, was Malone.
Bruce Malone,
Yeah.
I don't remember what his house looked like.
Is that different?
I remember where.
Doesn't look like the place up on Malone Road.
Well, I think after the meeting, I'm gonna go
Maybe
back to that
more like
box
the
over there,
house
because
that
I've
you're
made a
going up
mistake on
there
this
on
photograph.
the right.
His place, but I don't think so.
What a great photograph, but I gotta figure this
You
out
should
now.
face it going up Church Street.
Several barns here, and there's a barn in the back.
There's
Could
a
be.
back, I was saying.
What's that, Ted?
I don't know whose it is. I don't know whether it might be the old place, but I don't think it looks quite like that. That's where you go across going up Church Street from North Street, be on the right.
Oh,
The one setting up on top. That's,
that is a possibility,
The vines don't look right for there. I don't think the
Yeah.
room fall, because the road went,
because that's a very old house.
yes, it
It's
is.
beautiful now, it's all done up nice, but does that look like it wrong, you think?
well, I knew it as the Delmer old place, but if that is it.
Well, when the meeting's
I don't know
over, it's in the
if it
box
is.
back
Yeah, well,
there, and I'm
the
gonna look it up.
Sergeant built that for his son. If it is that place, that was built by Jabez Sargent for one of his sons, and he built the one the Comstocks are in for himself, and then he built one where Steve Copping is for another son.
All right, well, we can come back to that one, let's go to the next one.
Pair of matching dormers.
Yeah, almost.
They ran out of wood on the second one.
One's alike, the other's different.
I've got a name with this one, but I'll let everybody look at it.
Is it brick?
I'm not sure I knew this
Looks
house.
like a wood.
I'm not sure I knew this house, so we wrote a name that was on the back, so
Got a
we'll,
transom over the door, so it's a good early place.
yeah. So, the name on the back of this photograph was Paul Thompson.
Yeah, I thought it was that house.
Where do you live, Ted?
Where's that, Ted?
Well, that's where
He's good.
Control lived
Oh,
later.
up Popple Dungeon.
Yeah,
Maria Contro's house?
yeah, that's where Paul
No,
Paul lived. It's the one you can see if you go up the road to Popple Dungeon, up through there, but it's off to the left. A lot of trees, so you can't see it from the road now. That's where Paul Thompson lived.
no, I'm confused at what you, because I'm confused where that house is. You think it's where? You think it was whose house?
It would be on the right, going up to Popple Dungeon, and it's off to the right. And the road up to it, you go out some other road.
I should know this if it's the dungeon.
That's where Paul Thompson lived anyway. It was one of the Fletcher places originally. I think that's where C.C. lived, but I'm not
You
sure.
don't mean Mike Zaza's house?
Huh?
Mike Zaza's house? That could be. That could be. I would, Zaza has two houses over there.
Is
The
that
one
where
that
you go
Ruthie lives
along
in,
the hill farm?
and then the one...
Oh, that was
The one
Bruce's.
off Ethan Allen Road, is that it?
Is that her house?
Is that it? Do you know, Kenny? Could that be Mike Zaza's house? That's the oldest
Yeah, I
house
think
standing in
Zazel
Popple
lived in that
Dungeon.
house now.
Huh?
I think Zazel lived there, Ruth does.
Yeah, she came out and barked at me that day.
You're right, that's whose house is. I recognize this house now as being Mike Zaza. Actually, it's the oldest house in Popple Dungeon, still
Went
standing.
up with Ronnie and he...
It's off Ethan Allen
Ruthie kept
Road.
telling him to get the hell off the lawn. He was shouting the road.
Yes, that's what,
One
I
up
didn't,
there.
now I recognize it. Mike Zaza lives there, and it's off Ethan Allen Road. So you take a right off
It was the Coolidge,
CC Coolidge.
Fletcher Place.
Yeah, Fletcher Place. Okay, good. Good. Good stuff here tonight. Okay. Okay, this house, we go by every day.
That'd be Adams place? The Adams place up in town? Up in the stone, up past the Stone Village, the brick place?
Yeah, you call it Adams?
Yeah,
I call it Pember Hazen.
okay.
Yeah,
That's what I thought it was.
yeah, Pember Hazen's place.
We have a postcard of it, when it was called the Weather Vane. It was a tourist home.
Yep.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, and this part.
You probably, if you don't remember it, remember it.
All that's still intact, all those side buildings there to the left of the building.
Sure.
So, all right, so
You do.
that's it. Everybody recognize that house then as the big brick house in Chester Depot. Okay, next.
I painted that place in 1966.
That was a diner, wasn't it, at one time?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's the reason well, I know the place and everybody, it sounds like, recognizes this place, but I don't ever remember it being a diner, but you guys, some of you guys do.
Negus had some sort of a diner there, and Ruby Walker had it later.
Yeah, Negus, was that his name? Negus?
Yeah.
Negus, yeah.
Yep.
Pete Negus.
I charged $30 to paint that. I had my bicycle, I had a 16-foot extension ladder, 8 feet each. I strapped it onto the handlebars back to the back fender, tied it on. I had a gallon of paint hanging on the handlebar, and I pedaled every day back and forth, paint that house.
Ralph Jeffs lived there for a while.
Did he? Yeah, I knew Ralph Jeffs. Well, a few months back, I found a business card that says Dolores's Diner, Chester, Vermont. Does anybody have any, it was an old business card that said Dolores's Diner. I still have it, so I'll bring that next meeting. So I said, could that have been Dolores's Diner? And I haven't found anybody that ever heard of it.
Where is this?
So you're just about a mile up the road here on the
Right when you
left.
turn on the Hill,
Yeah.
Blue Hill Road.
Yeah, sits right up next to the road,
Okay,
across from Pelkey's house.
Okay.
Well, Pelkey's house is gone now. but-
yeah, right, okay.
Yeah. So did anybody ever eat there? Did you eat there, Ted? No? All right, just wanted to know if the food was any good. Okay. Yeah,
Cemetery out
because
there.
on the back of this card, it said Ruby Hill.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah, Ruby Hill.
The hills you see.
That's
on
Ruby
that.
Walker,
Ruby
Ruby
and John
Hill.
Hill.
Same
Okay,
person, yeah.
okay. So we just got one more photograph and then we'll go back to the meeting here, so.
Is that Lover's Lane?
Anybody have any guesses on that? Yes, I believe so.
I can't remember the name of it, I'm trying to think.
I can't think of what it was. It was away from home or something like
Wait,
that.
yeah, Wait from Home or something like that.
Yeah. It was another
Might be
place.
her house.
Later.
Where's your house?
918 Lover's Lane.
Oh, this lady says that's her house,
So
so,
Jim Dawson lived.
yeah,
Eve Dawson.
okay.
That we have,
I didn't know that was your house, well,
Well, that's why I'm here.
yeah, okay.
we had donated a number of years ago. I don't remember now whether they were postcards. I think they were of this place when it was,
Don't.
before Dawson were there. It was Way from Home or something like that was the
I
name
can't
of it.
think of the name of it.
Well, the name on the back of this card says Well Away Farm.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so that's good.
We've got postcards of that, John,
Okay, okay. Yeah.
inside and out.
Yeah. So the only photograph we weren't sure of tonight is the one that I had identified as Paul Jeffrey. And so it sounds like I've made a mistake, but I'm pretty sure that's what it said on the back of the card, unless it's something Paul donated. Most of us knew Paul Jeffrey, yeah. But,
I don't know how we ever tied in with that one.
I don't know. I think after the meeting later on, I'm gonna go back and get that card out of the box. Yeah. So,
Well, that's.
okay. Any questions about the slideshow tonight, or,
Keep them coming.
yeah, more next time, yeah. So how long have you had that house?
Since August of 18.
Yeah, August 2018, yeah. All right, so.
COVID got in the way of coming.
Oh, yes. Where are you from?
Michigan.
Michigan. Welcome.
Thank you.
So the other stuff I have to talk to about tonight is, I've been talking to Julie, and we have some volunteers. Julie wants me to get a few volunteers from the Chester Historical Society, and this is about cleaning up the building, and Julie has a couple members. Julie, our town manager, has a couple people that want to get involved in cleaning it up. Last week, we had 20 kids from Green Mountain High School here, gave them a tour of the building. Some of those kids are going to do community service in the future, and they're going to do some work in this building. So that's good news. I talked to Julie again today about cleaning up the building. If we did get a dumpster, the town wouldn't be purchasing the dumpster. That would be on us. So I know funds are tight, so I'm going to bang on a few doors of businesses and looking for some donations to the Chester Historical Society so we can start our cleanup. Today I was down in the basement. I had a young lad that wanted a tour of the place, him and his grandmother. And I went down in the basement after they left, and I was telling Ron we have a lot of like farm tools and
Farm equipment, yeah.
farm equipment and stuff I don't even know what it does. And Ron's identified some of those pieces, and what do we do with them? I'm not sure. One of the ideas is if we restore the Paul Jeffrey barn on 103, that those items would be good on display in that barn. But I think I'm going to run into a dilemma with the town eventually, because the town's going to want to use a couple rooms here, and they're going to want this building open, and they're going to want to use the bathrooms, and they do own the building. So I got to figure out what to do with all this stuff and organize it and get it on display. And so tonight, after tonight's meeting, I'm going to ask Rachel, maybe Carla. I'd like to get one group together and that has a Facebook page, and I'd like to get another few people together that know about taking photographs, digitizing them, starting to get stuff online so other people can look at it. And I'm not savvy at all. Rachel is, Carla is, others are. So if people start mingling after the meeting and talking about that, we have a bunch of cookies up back too to munch on. So the other thing I believe it was Susan Goodfellow had mentioned is, and Ron probably knows the answer to this, and I got the Constitution for the Historical Society. Rachel's got me a copy. And she said maybe a governance committee. So when somebody brings in a collection, do we keep everything? And Ron might speak after the meeting on this, because I don't know. And I'll bring up a for instance. So the girl that came down from South Burlington, what to do with all these clothing items. And she left it, this belongs to the Historical Society, this does too, but she did say, do what you want with these clothing items. So that brings up a good point. Right now, yes, we'll keep them, they're very old, but I don't know what we keep, do we sell anything? And I'm in a dilemma, and I'm looking for answers on what to do, and Ron can help me out with that.
Upstairs in the workroom, walk in the door, on the right are all those racks, those big racks. There are long cardboard boxes. God, they must be close to 4 feet long, probably 4 or 5 inches high and a couple feet wide. In those boxes are our costumes collection. We have a crewel dress made around 1760 in one of those boxes.
Okay, I've seen this.
In a few of those boxes, we have men's clothing already. These were put together by people that knew what they were doing. Everything is wrapped in acid-free tissue paper. So that tux you just held up, well, it's not really a tux, but I'll call it that you just held up, I'd put it right in one of those boxes that already has men's clothing in it.
Okay, I did not know if I should get, I'm not gonna dry clean it. I didn't know exactly, I don't know what to do with them, so now you're telling me,
Yeah.
so.
That's what I would do.
Okay, okay. Because they're very old and very good, then there's more clothing in there, and she wasn't sure what to do. So is there bylaws, Ron, or is there a governance paper that says what to do with stuff that's donated? Is there a certain time that we come up with a decision? If the town says, like, we gotta consolidate, right now we've got stuff in 4 rooms and a basement and closets, so that's where I'm in a dilemma. I don't know what to do with everything that we have in this building.
Has the Historical Society ever had an archivist?
Ron's shaking his head,
And
yes.
there are archivist records of acquisitions and such?
There is a very old one somewhere I saw years ago. It's an inventory of the contents of this building. It's 40, 50 years old, something like that. It's never been kept up.
Okay, so here's another question. So there was a alumni week. There was a guy in town. He's a retired pilot. He grew right up here on Main Street. And he said his grandfather built a dollhouse years ago and donated it to the Chester Historical Society. Not sure it's still here. What if a family member had donated something years ago and they come back to town 50 years later? Could they get the item back? These are a bunch of questions I don't know the answers to.
The proper way to what we were doing when someone donated things, we would make an itemized list of what they donated. It's a printed paper, you'll find them in the office, it's a standard form, and then they sign it. And if that's done, they can't come back in the future and do anything.
Okay. But do you see where I'm headed with the town with this? You know, sooner or later, somehow we could maybe do a great job and we could keep every little item and have it organized. But if the town comes back and say they like us here, they've told me several times they like us here, but they also want to have use of this building. So I see us not having all 4 rooms. So somehow I got to get organized and get stuff. I'm not sure what to do.
Well, can I make a comment, John?
Yes.
It's, I'm absolutely amazed at just what I see in this room here. And if there's some way, for instance, to digitize things that people donate, then you can share it with a broader community. Right now, things are packed in boxes.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's here. You can't lay a finger on what's maybe around. But if we can get it digitized, it's hard to say what has value. For instance, there was a little scrap of paper that someone had written a recipe on.
Yeah.
And it was just a handwritten recipe. And you loaned it to me, and I flipped it over, and it was a billhead. The recipe had been written on a billhead. And so I scanned it, and there is a Facebook page called If You Were From Chester, Vermont. And I put it on that, both the recipe side and the flip side, and all of a sudden, all these comments, it was a family. They recognized their ancestors just from that little tiny scrap of paper. And it brought back wonderful memories for them. And it led to answering some questions that they had always wondered how they were related.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you can digitize things and get it out there, it has value to a broader community than
And
just
that's
being
the
in
number
box.
one thing, is to get things digitized, and folks like yourself and Rachel and people that are good at that, and there's another guy, Bob, that comes here, he wants to get involved in that. Okay, and that's good, but there's can we also organize all this stuff in a couple rooms? Is that possible?
I don't know how much stuff
I-
you have.
I would
That's-
say, John, I mean, I haven't seen the whole building,
Yeah.
but if you just were to look and see, we could definitely, there's a lot of dead space, even in this room.
Like wall space, floor
Wall
space?
space, floor space, right. You could very
Desk.
easily organize things similar to what you have in terms of boxes
Yeah,
there to your
that's great.
side, right? And because those boxes, I'm assuming, are archival quality, right? So they're protected a little bit more maybe than some things that aren't. You know, they're in an order to them so that someone could find them the way that, you know, that when they wanted to find them, not by accident when you're walking around the room, which is what I've done the same thing. So there's lots of things that can be
Okay,
done
so
for
I'm
sure.
looking for a crew to help me organize and get at least these 2 rooms organized downstairs. I'm looking for people like Rachel and Carla and Bob, I don't see him here tonight, to do digitizing of photographs so they can be displayed online. But Julie gets a hold of me quite often, and she's been very good, and she's talked about grant money and getting places like this fixed and the upstairs fixed whenever that is. But she would like to see things get sorted here, and so would I. So I'm looking for some members to help me with that. And you volunteered, and obviously I'll get in on it. And Ron has the most knowledge about what's in this building. But, all right, so we're making some headway, but I'm at a loss of how to sort all this stuff. But digitizing, that's priority, so everybody can see what we have. And maybe we do have enough floor space and wall space to get this organized.
If you think about this as a museum, right, is making a snake space, right? If like a walk-through is like a snake, you've just doubled your space
Okay.
for display.
Well, have you been next door?
I haven't.
Oh, well, that
That's what
room
they
next
have.
door is a
That's what that
display room.
basically is. If you digitize the bulk of this, the physical simply needs to be stored so it's accessible. Everything in this room could go on that piece of that wall
Really?
if you
Yeah.
store it properly. And you can set up a system to access it that,
Well, I'm gonna have you volunteer to help me. Yeah,
I was afraid to say anything because I thought maybe you were going to say exactly that.
yeah.
I'm willing
Yeah,
to do
we'll
that.
figure out times and dates where we can get people together. It is time consuming. I do come down quite a bit just to sweep and clean and try to do the best so we can pull off a meeting each month, but
John, do you know what use the town is looking for? Like, do they want to have a meeting space in one of these rooms? What is it that they want to use it
possible
for?
meeting space, and I'll know more in the next couple of weeks. Julie is got 3 people together, and she wants me to get at least 3 members from here where we sit down. It does sound like they want a room to display some art. So if we had a local artist that you could walk in and see their artwork. I know we had an art guild here years ago. She also wants the building open on the weekends. That could be, but these rooms would have to be locked, I guess, or we'd have to have Pete, myself, or somebody here, you know, because we can't just have anybody walking through, right?
Unlocked for the bathrooms or unlocked?
Mainly for the bathrooms. Yeah.
Why doesn't the town just get porta potties and put them somewhere for the public to use rather than infringing on this building?
Okay. Well, what the town tells us when I mention that is they own the building. They own the building, they own the bathrooms. We do pay for the water, sewer, electricity, and alarms for 1 more month. But they're saying because they own this building and they're gonna get the furnace fixed. Arnie's he's working on something to do with the hot water now. Arnie's been in here several times. They have a full-time maintenance guy that comes here now. His name's Steve. So he maintains all the properties that the town of Chester owns. And this is one of their priority buildings. So we're not getting kicked out, but they want more access to this building.
So did they want the two upstairs rooms as well?
No, they haven't actually said which rooms they want. They don't want the society going. They want it organized, cleaned up.
If the lobby were cleaned out completely and they wanted to have an art show, there's plenty of wall space right there.
Yeah,
In
and
the
I'm gonna
lobby.
mention that too. Yeah, I can mention that. She has been good to work with. Julie has been very knowledgeable as far as grant money and doing that.
I know it's very expensive for them. The one bathroom they have here on the green, that has a holding tank.
Mhm.
And they had and it's very expensive. They have to pump it all the time.
Yeah.
It gets used a lot. I think it was like $700 to get it pumped. They're very expensive.
Okay.
And they had tried looking into getting that connected to the town water and sewer.
Mhm.
It's already got water. They were trying to connect it to the sewer. But there were obstacles, including, I think, a big tree out here that's a special tree. It's been here for 100 years, more than 100 years probably. And they didn't want to dig by that because they didn't want a chance killing it. And then the other main, I don't know, I didn't understand it, but maybe it's too low or too high and you couldn't get the gravity to feed. I don't know anything about plumbing, but there was an obstacle with that as well.
I think I'll
So,
invite Julie to a meeting.
I think they want to get off of using anything that needs maintenance other than you just flush and clean the bowl. They don't want to have to pump holding tanks. They don't want to contract with a porta potty place because they don't want to have that large an expense. They want flush and goes down to the sewer plant.
Yeah.
Well, if they're gonna be using the bathrooms on the weekends, then I assume they're gonna take over the water bill?
I would think so. They're gonna do the furnace work. Whether that furnace down there is gonna be the supply for this place or a brand-new furnace, this building is gonna be heated, which is a benefit to us and all the artifacts that we have.
But if you have to lose your ground floor rooms and have to start meeting upstairs, it's gonna decrease the number of people that are gonna come to your
Yeah.
meetings.
I do not see that happening, no. Like, not yet.
I
Yeah.
would think if
And
they
we
wanted
might
to-
end up with 3 rooms. We got an alumni room up here. Actually, we don't have access to upstairs because of the plaster
ceiling.
falling down on the ceiling, but
It may be that you may be able to use this room as a multi-purpose meeting room. The town could have somebody come, and much like the Historical Society did at the town hall, when that was renovated, you've lent beautiful pieces of old signage and old pictures, and
Yeah.
it's beautifully decorated down there now. So it's almost an extension of the Historical Society's collection on the walls at the town hall now.
Does the town have an archive anywhere?
That's, I know. Well, in the vault, there's a bunch of stuff, but
But there's no, say, climate-controlled space for town records?
The vault.
Peter could
The
better
vault.
answer that question.
the vault, right? Is that climate controlled?
It serves as that.
Yeah.
No, the door's open most of the time.
Yeah. They do have great records down there, I will say that.
I'm just saying, maybe that's an advantage, right? To think about a space could be a safe archive space. Maybe it benefits the town, maybe it also benefits the Historical Society that could be in this building.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, this basement is huge down here. So, the more work they do here and getting the furnace going and dehumidifiers and getting the basement cleaned out, that's more room for storage. Yeah, I think heat's important, getting heat in the building. And I'm gonna keep talking to Julie to see what their plans here, but number one, they want access to the building, and they're gonna need some space eventually, what, if it's art or whatever it is. I just don't think in the future we're gonna have 4 rooms to ourselves. But as you say, once we get organized, you're saying that we can, I don't know if it's cabinets or shelves or whatever, you could do a lot in these 2 rooms. I like how you have that set up over there, Ron. I don't know all about it, but for those of you who haven't been in the next room or after this meeting, you can walk around and look at different displays in the next room.
The workroom, as I always called it, upstairs on the opposite end of where we are. That's where those costumes are. There's very little in that room. Everything that's in that room would easily you could get it in here easy. Probably most of the costumes, if the closet was empty, then you had some sort of rack system. You could probably put them all on racks. The alumni stuff, that's a different story. There's an awful lot of Andy Oyen rubble up there, duplicates, but
hundreds of yearbooks upstairs, taking up a lot of space. Yeah.
Multiples of the same year?
Yep. Yep. And actually, I think I'm part of that problem. Green Mountain High School was throwing out all their yearbooks into a dumpster. So Kelly, the secretary, called me up, so I went up and grabbed those because I didn't want to see them all in a dumpster. And they ended up down to Andy's house, and I think now they're all up here. Yep. So multiple. Yeah.
Well, if you have multiples of a year, so they pick 1983, and you've got 15 1983s. I mean, really, you only need one.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
Those can be digitized
they
again.
could, yeah,
Or
they
keep more
could
than
be-
one anyway, maybe 5, you know, or
or
something.
whatever. If you've
Yeah.
got 24, I
Yeah.
definitely keep one.
Some are still
And
Columbia.
either, yeah, people are always looking to buy yearbooks from the year, because there's a whole website, classmates.com, and you can buy your yearbook, it costs you $100.
So how do I go, say somebody approaches me and they, from the class of 1959, and they want to give me $5 for a yearbook, do I have the say to say,
if we have duplicates,
Tell them 50.
yeah,
if we have duplicates, I would sell it.
yes, okay. I just don't want to do
And
something.
I think we have duplicates of most
We
of
got
them.
so many yearbooks up there, it's ridiculous, yeah,
That might be a nice fundraiser.
Yes. yeah.
I always felt, John, this is my own opinion, when I took over here way back, it had been run by people from New Jersey for a long time who didn't really have much of an interest in our stuff. It was an opportunity for tea and crumpets, that kind of thing. You know, they did do some good. I don't want to pull too much. But when I first became president, the membership was way down. So if I went around town, I'd see somebody in the store or the gas station. I'd say, "Hey, I'm president of the Historical Society now. You ought to join." And Allie Pryor was one of them. And she said, "Well," she said, "I wouldn't join that organization." She said, "We took them some stuff and they didn't want it." And I heard that from many, many Chester people, that they brought their stuff here and it was rejected. So my policy's always been, take anything anybody brings, anything. If it's junk, after they leave, junk it. You get much better publicity that way, because those people will go home, "Well, I took my stuff to the Historical Society today, and they were very happy to have it." That's the kind of
Yeah,
business
That's good.
I tried to develop. Don't turn anything away.
okay. So at the end of the meeting tonight here, there's another pile of photographs that not everybody got to see from this Heald collection. And some are from Chester, some are not, but people come up here and look at all this display. Any other questions for me tonight? So
I had a comment.
what's that?
Thinking about the Milton House, looking at it. The outbuildings, Fred Rand tore down some of them outbuildings, and he built the original gas stations up where Spalding's garage is today.
Okay,
I don't think that building still exists up there, but I remember Fred taking down buildings up there,
okay,
outbuildings, and building that station.
yeah. Well, after the meeting, we're gonna try to find that photograph on the back and see what name was actually on, was it Paul Jeffries or somebody else's, so we're gonna do that. I encourage the people that are interested in digitizing, I'm also encouraging people to approach me about helping me organize, and, okay. So, any other questions? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Yeah. Second.
Second.
Second? Okay. Thank you all for coming.